The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra Biscornet, and I believe everyone has a story to tell. What's yours?
Deborah Monk, empowering you to find your own creative voice.
Shelley Devlin, inspiring you to find your why.
Last week on the Writer's Block, we welcomed children's author Matt Forrest Essenwine, who wrote Don't Ask a Dinosaur and Flashlight Night, and we discussed children's literature and poetry. Today, we are going to hear all about Deb's writing class that she went to with New York Times best-selling author Joyce Maynard, author of At Home in the World and Labor Day. So Deb.
And one more. And the best, well, more, multiple fiction books, and also the memoir Best of Us.
Right, which one was turned into a movie?
Labor Day was turned into the movie with Kate Winslet.
Labor Day was turned into a movie. All right.
Fun.
Yeah.
So Joyce has some credentials.
Oh, yes. So she's actually written two memoirs, which I think is kind of interesting to have someone, we're all struggling with one, and I can't imagine.
She has enough to do too.
in one life, right.
Right.
Yeah. So
is she also a professor?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because this was at Yale, right?
It was at Yale.
Yeah.
She's now back as a student because her first, she went to Yale when she was young.
Why is she a student? She's written a bunch of books.
We didn't really get to ask that, but when she was younger, she went to Yale, and she had published an article. I forget where. I remember she told us, and then J.D. Salinger, who wrote A Catcher in the Rye, had reached out to her, and she ended up dropping out of Yale and moving in with him and having quite a year, and then
Quite a year.
Well, no wonder she has two memoirs, right?
Right, that one's one right there.
Well,
There you
the
go.
first one was about the sexy time with J.D. Salinger.
no.
And then the second one was the rest of her life.
The thing is, she didn't write that novel she didn't write the memoir about that time until she was in her 40s, because J.D. Salinger is such a private man, and she was trying not to have that be a stain or be recognized for that. So she didn't put that book
Always
out
just
until
wash the sheets.
40 years later.
So
anyway.
Is she now back at Yale as studying
Now she's
what?
a student.
Studying what, though? Like writing?
I don't know if she told
Getting
us
into
or not.
pharmaceuticals? Like, what is she doing?
She's a student for life.
Yeah.
Student for life.
I just find that interesting that she left Yale
Yes.
and has many, many years later decided to become a student again
Yes.
at Yale.
At what age?
I think she's in her 60s.
Poor Deb.
Wow.
She's like, these are not the questions I thought you were going to be asking me.
No, but
Do you feel under pressure?
I think
She'd like all of your questions submitted in advance.
Right. Poor Deb was like, I don't know. I didn't ask her that.
yeah, it didn't come up.
I'm sorry. That's just our own curiosity.
No, it's
Deb.
I think it's very interesting. My guess, and this is totally me from the outside. I think it was something that she started and
Wants to finish.
stopped, and maybe regrets not having finished. And I think also if she does finish, she'll have another book in her. I would guess if she does finish Yale, which she says is not easy, and I believe she
would
was
think
there
so.
on a scholarship the first time.
For crew.
No, I don't know what she was. When she was
What the
18,
hell
I don't know
is
what she
wrong
went
with
to a
you?
scholarship
Crew?
for.
Yeah, because that's the big college scandal right now, right? 2 kids got scholarships for crew that never rode crew at.
Right.
Never mind.
Yes.
Oh,
Never mind.
Okay. So how did you find out about this writing class?
Well, this is the thing that I was supposed to go with Shelley to North Carolina, the writing retreat we
Right,
talked
which we
about a couple
talked
of weeks ago.
about. Right.
Yes.
Instead, Deb opted to sleep through this thing with the lady that she got no facts on.
It was not about me asking what she did 50 years ago, but so I was supposed to go with Shelley, and yet I kept, and it's not, I was totally in, I was going, and yet every time I write it down on my list of things to do to register, it just didn't get done. And then I saw that Joyce Maynard was offering this one-day workshop in her home. It was, you had to apply, you had to be accepted. It was only
Well,
going to be...
that's a little different. You have to be
Yes.
accepted.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was only accepting 8 people. And so I had just finished, I'll be honest, I hadn't read Joyce Maynard's books. And I had not long before that come across her book, The Best of Us, which is a memoir that that's her most recent memoir. And it's quite a long book. It's a hardcover. I'm going to guess 400 pages. And it was about, it started out, and you were pretty clear that she had met her new husband, and they were going to get married, and then he was going to be diagnosed. And it was pretty clear right from the beginning of the book. You pretty much knew he wasn't going to make it. So you knew this was a book she was writing about her husband dying, essentially, her brand new husband dying. And yet I read it all in one day. It kept me up till midnight.
Wow.
Yes, I started it. I couldn't put it down. It was never, action, never great big, there weren't any huge surprises, meaning.
Now, you did that after you signed up?
No, I had read this book.
So
then
this is what pushed you to sign up.
Yes. So then when I saw she was offering this, I thought, boy, if she could make me read that.
I have to know what drew you into the book. What was it about her writing style? Her turn of phrase.
I tell you, there were some lines that I literally read out loud to myself in our home, because I thought they don't rhyme, but they're so poetic. Unfortunately, when I went back in the 400-page book, I couldn't find those lines. So I will study that book more, but I can't really tell you how she did it.
But it was lyrical like you like.
Yes.
And that's what caught you.
It was word choice, and it was beautiful, and it was heart-wrenching, and there were moments where she talked about, towards the end, about how her children had always been the center of her heart, and that she knew that her children's feelings would not be hurt, but for them to be able to write that this new man in her life, all the men that had come before were outside of the center of her heart. They were in her heart, but outside. But this man became the center of her heart, and her children were pushed a little bit further into the outer realms of her heart. And she wrote that so beautifully. So she just wrote so many things that you could just relate to. So when I saw this, I thought, well, I'm going to apply. And if I haven't already signed up for the one with Shelley.
Right.
And if I get accepted, then I'm meant to go to this. And if I don't, then I can still sign up.
And this was a 2-day?
No, it was 1 day.
It was one
And
day.
just so everybody knows how much this affected Deb, I'm her husband, and I'm allowed sometimes to look at her heart, but I'm not allowed inside the outer rim, in the middle. I don't know what that is. So I'm allowed to look at it sometimes, and
Don't
then
touch
she
it.
closes it
Don't
back
touch
up
it.
and
You're an observer.
puts it in the
Don't touch
closet.
it.
I didn't say I could touch it.
Don't touch it.
Yeah. So I applied, and I got accepted. And I'll be honest, in my head, I heard that there were 500 applicants.
What do you mean in your head you heard that?
Because I never found out.
Oh,
there
I
could
see.
have been 8.
She was chosen.
Yes.
She was chosen.
I was chosen.
She was one of the chosen ones.
She was not one of the 8 that
So
she
did you
just said
go-
yes.
Go
Yes.
down the night before.
We did. So we went down the
But
night.
wait. What were the qualifications to be
You had to send
chosen?
pages.
So you did have to. So in this
Yes.
case, you did have to send pages.
Yes.
Yeah, were you listening to the earlier part of the podcast, Deidre, when she went over that part?
No, but what did you
Okay.
send?
I sent the beginning. Well,
Which
funny enough,
I mean, Deb has a few books. What'd
She
you
does.
send?
I sent the beginning of the memoir
Okay.
as my
Pursuit of-
application. Yes, to
Okay.
get in, which was all those random snippets, the way
Yep.
I had it, or the way I had it, or the way I have it. So I apply, and I get in, and I actually felt quite.
Pleased with yourself.
I did. I
Yeah,
thought,
you
I
should.
felt a little bit like,
You got
it-
accepted.
by Joyce Maynard. I thought this is, I must not stink. So
Does
I
she
went,
go through her process at all during this
well, I'm
very
not there
small
yet.
class?
I do
Jeez
have to.
Louise,
I
we're
have
8
to-
minutes in. I'm
all right.
dying to know.
All right, but I have to tell you. Now, remember, Shelley and I are away at the same time.
Yes.
Remember, this is the day she sends the video in the morning of her walking into her room with the great big bed and the overlooking the ocean. Now, I'm going down to New Haven, Connecticut.
Mhm.
I believe it's New Haven. And
And you walk into the Econo Lodge.
well, because it was supposed to
Pretty
be
close.
The Marriott was right around the corner. I
Yep.
called; they were full. She gave 2 other places. I called them both; they were full. Apparently, Yale graduation. A lot of people are. So I ended up in basically not even the Econo Lodge. I ended up in just New Haven.
Motel.
Yeah, pretty much. And I go in. So now Shelley has sent this beautiful picture, and I walk in, and there, the chain lock on your door.
Yeah.
Well, it's just hanging down. The thing has been ripped off the door. I turn the little key. I say, can I be on the second? I ask as I'm checking, can I be on the second floor? Thinking, there'll be a little safety there. Then realizing, no, this is the kind you go and you walk up the steps.
Yeah.
Some reason.
is
I'm
Well,
no
they ask
elevator.
if you're renting by the hour,
Right,
or
yes.
if you'd like it for the evening.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there like a burnt orange bedspread, like 1970s or something?
Oh, but it smelled like burnt oranges.
and like it came from the 1970s.
And you had to go buy shower slippers to get in.
Because I brought brought a sleeping bag because I knew, at $60 a night, you're going to. Exactly.
In Connecticut.
Right. So I brought a sleeping bag.
That's why you threw away the bedspread when you came back. All right.
Yeah. I didn't bring shower slippers. I then had to go out and buy some because I thought, so here she's sending a picture of this tub. I try to turn on the TV so I can get distracted because, of course, you can hear everything. The TV doesn't work.
The hourly rentals.
The hourly rentals on either side.
Yeah.
Can we get to the writing process, please? The podcast is about writing.
I go down and I tell them my TV is not working. She said, well, just call us on the phone when you get back to your room. I go back to my room. There is no phone. It's been ripped out of the wall. So, anyway, we meet up at a pizza place, the 8 of us in the group as well as Joyce. And I end up sitting next to Joyce. So we're making contact. There's a lot of small all right, so I don't know. Maybe that part doesn't matter. But there's a part of me that a couple times I had to remind myself.
You didn't touch her leg, did you?
I almost did. I almost did by mistake. And then I remembered it's not you. So I didn't.
Right.
But I did make the mistake of saying to her, because when I went on her website is a picture of her sitting in a window seat with a rainy window behind her. Now, and I turned to her and I said, Joyce, I just have to tell you, everything I've learned, you've done your website wrong, which was not how I meant for it to come out.
That's a great start to a New York Times bestselling author.
What I was trying to say was, Joyce, your website is exactly how I wanted mine to be. And you don't have to capture your email on every single page. And there aren't 50 pages and there aren't all these, video embedded and all this stuff that you're supposed to have that I now theoretically have. So I think her website is beautiful because when you go on it, it just makes you want to sit and have coffee with this woman. And to me, that's what a website should do, draw you into the person. All right. So the next day, I go home, I go to bed. In my pajamas and my sleeping bag up to here with my, little lock knob turned. Let's try saying that fast. We go to the thing. She was amazing. It was so intense.
So where was it at?
It was in her little college apartment with her bike that she rides around the campus at the base of the stairs. So we go
8 of you?
Yeah.
Stuffed into a college dorm room.
What? It wasn't a college dorm room. It was a college apartment.
Okay.
Yes, it was cozy.
Which is like 3 feet bigger than a dorm room.
It was lovely.
What did you do? What was so amazing?
So she had a whiteboard that was basically the size of a huge chalkboard in a classroom when you're young. 8 of us had sent pages. Most people sent between 2 and 5 pages. Of course, I sent more, but because...
Like 150?
No, because I think I sent 15 because that was what we could send. When I read everybody's pages in advance, which she had us do so that we would see her process, even my own included, I thought to myself, how can she advise us with only 3 or 4 or 5 pages?
Right.
How is she going to spend a whole day teaching us? She spent the whole day teaching us. And I learned more by seeing her critique other people's pages than I did, in a way, my own, because I'm not as emotionally connected. Mm-hmm. It was mind-blowing. Here are 2 examples. She took one woman's pages and she said, okay, we're going to take each paragraph and we're going to write one sentence about what it's about. So this paragraph is about this. This paragraph is about this. Then 10 paragraphs down, 10 lines down, you should see sort of a story from those 10 sentences. And we didn't, because she put so much into it, as all writers do. We try to we put everything in because we don't know which parts are interesting.
Right.
So from that, she said, okay, what do you want this to be about? Now let's make every sentence about that, and everything else that isn't about that,
then everything else relates back to those those themes, really pulling the theme through.
I've never seen it done that way. It was so clear to do it. And I thought I will be able to do that with my own work when I'm kind of stuck.
Right.
Another time she took another woman's work and she said, okay, we're going to make 3 columns. We're going to make column A, column B, column C. And we're going to go through and we're going to say what everything is about. And if it's not about one of these 3, it gets cut. So in her 4 pages, 3 columns, 3 subjects that these 4 pages can be about. That's a lot, 3 subjects and 4 pages. But yet probably 3/4 of what she wrote had to be cut. Now it can be addressed later, but if it didn't address either A, B, or C, it doesn't belong in these.
To go.
Right. So it was stunning.
What should she do with your work?
She said I was amazing and she wants to be my best friend. And I told her, Shelley's already my best. Oh, wait, that was in my head too.
Good. Keep that in your head.
Yeah. It was a little rough, I'll tell you. Because she would ask questions and she kept making me talk about things I didn't want to talk about.
Imagine that.
Damn.
Really?
Damn.
Yes.
I know,
And
right?
Would that be
Who
an
would've thunk?
indication that you didn't write enough about those things that you don't want to talk about?
Well, I don't think so because it was further in that were the questions. But one of the things she said was the first pages that I submitted to her were the beginning of the book with snippets, meaning I just did a bunch of kind of essentially scenes about random things, which is what I submitted to her. What I then did was I pulled all those scenes together because my new editor said, you're kind of all over the place. So let's pull it all together. And I put them all into one scene because one of the snippets was about being in the dentist chair getting a broken tooth fixed. So I put them all in that scene. And I thought, I've done it.
I remember you saying like,
Yes.
this is great.
So one of the things that Joyce did was she said to the rest of the group, okay, do you think that this woman that we've been talking to, last night and today that we've gotten a little bit to know, do you think we should meet her in a dentist chair?
Interesting.
They're like, that doesn't really reflect you. When you talk about your feathers and your rhinestones and your costumes,
And you're like that.
You're so enamored.
Under some light Novocaine.
Yeah. And, when you talk, so you've been there, you've been on the competitive ballroom dance floor, you've been this.
And we meet you in a dentist
And we
chair.
meet you in a dentist chair
Yeah.
like everybody, like the rest of us. That's not really a great start. Ooh, that kind of hurt. She also said, as you guys know, in the book, I have kind of, let's call her an alter ego called Feather Girl.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like her.
You love Feather Girl.
I do love Feather Girl. She's like, yeah, I'm not into this dream stuff. I'm not into these imaginary characters.
Oh, wow.
I
Did you feel
know.
beat up when you were done?
I could have, but I
Okay.
definitely didn't. But I will say the other thing that she said to me that I literally, one thing she did say to me was she asked me if I would, this is true. She asked, this is very, very true, not just my head. She asked if I would follow her around in her real life because I sat on the couch with my mouth dropping further and further and further open. And when you think your mouth can't open anymore, my mouth apparently but can open more because I was just so holy shit.
Like everything she said.
With the stuff she was saying to other
Yeah.
people. Like she was
So she
pulling
wanted to
the
keep having that feeling.
Yeah, she wanted,
that- yeah.
because she clearly could tell I was so impressed. And so
Right.
she wanted someone, So
How much did you pay for this emotional abuse?
Good question.
this was $500 for the day. And well worth it. Well worth it. I mean, she's a master teacher. But the two things that I left with, the one thing that she said to me that made me, that I kept leaning forward, like, I don't get it. I could tell she was trying to tell me something. And essentially she was saying, even though this is your story, it's a story.
Yeah.
We just want to go on the journey with you. And I said, so it's a story. And she said, yes, Deb, it's a story. But wait, you mean this is and I thought, it got me to realize you just have to fall in love with the character of me if I'm going to write this memoir. And that as any character, they're always flawed, which only makes them more lovable. And the other thing she said was there doesn't have to be a grand learning, a grand lesson.
I thank God she told you that.
Seriously.
Because we have been harping on that, I feel, for a year. That what is your ending? What is the big learning experience?
big aha moment.
Right. And we've said maybe you haven't had it yet. Da, da, da. It's
Yeah,
still,
but so
it's
the
still a
answer
good,
is I don't have to have one?
you don't have to have
No,
one.
because
It's still
everybody's going to
good
have a different
story.
aha moment.
Well, yes,
And
so
it's
that
still
was
like we
in a
still
different
like
way.
reading that
Right.
story, whether you have this come to Jesus aha moment.
Right.
And I feel like that's held you up.
It has, because I've always
this thing
thought
could have
there's
been
no
done
lesson.
2 years ago.
Well, it was done, and then it was done again. So when I drove home, I'll tell you, I literally was at 50-50. Completely at 50-50 of whether I'm going to ever put this out. And another thing, I did think to myself, maybe that's when you know you're a real writer. When you have books that you know you're not going to put out. Dun, dun, dun.
No.
No? Well, because her book, The Best of Us, is as I said, this story of her, her losing her husband, essentially. That's what the whole book is about. And when I think about a lot of the older women that I know, my mother, my aunt, a lot of older women have lost their husband. Like, this is
and
not...
they've cared for them through that.
Yes,
and
through
that's
horrible...
the universal story.
But does that mean many people should write about it? Does that mean my mother could write a book? Does that mean my aunt should write a book about it?
I think your mother could write a book.
No, she could, but that wouldn't be about that now, would it? Meaning that...
But you don't not write a book just because somebody else wrote.
No, but they should. No, neither one of them can write a book.
No, and they probably won't.
And no, they won't. And a lot of people shouldn't. But I think my point was that Joyce's book, there was no great, big, grand, unbelievable journey experience that no one else has had. It's a very common experience for older women. And yet she made it so I couldn't put the book down. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can do that, and we'll see. But it was amazing.
So it was totally worth it.
Oh, so worth it.
So worth it.
Yes, I will do another one with her. Yeah. If I get accepted again from the 500 applications.
Oh my God. Or the 10.
Or the 5.
Or the 5.
She'll be reaching out to me. Hey, Deb, any change you want? No, I'm kidding. That's not going to happen.
It could.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. And be sure to check us out at the Writer's Block NH Facebook and the Writer's Block podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. If you'd like to hear this episode again, you can head on over to the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. That's UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Thank you for listening, and we hope to inspire and empower you to tell your own story.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.